So I just wanted to give a little background on the conflict in general before talking more about Reynosa, just for some of you don't follow issues in Mexico that closely. The drug war, we call it shorthand, the drug war, began in 2006 with President Calderon when he sent out the military to fight organized crime. I don't really like the term drug war. It's kind of used as shorthand because I think people understand that because it implies that anybody killed in the conflict has some connection to the drug business or organized crime. But what I found is that increasingly innocent civilians, journalists, human rights activists, and community leaders who have nothing to do with drug cartels are being killed. We just haven't found a better definition for the conflict. So 100,000 estimated deaths since the conflict began. It disappeared recently. The Mexican government just came out, I think, last week in admitting that there was 27,000 people that had disappeared. I think it's probably much more than that. Probably more than 230,000 people displaced. The problem is there's not a lot of reliable statistical information. These are some of the images that you see on social media on a daily basis in Tamaulipas. This is a member of the Gulf Cartel. I just pulled this off the Reynosa Follow Twitter hashtag. You see all kinds of crazy things on there. There's a huge presence of organized crime in social media. Here's another picture of him. He sends out pictures of himself dressed up in various outfits. I don't know if that's like a rocket launcher or what that is, but it's pretty over the top. Yeah. So Mexico has become one of the deadliest countries for journalists in the world in the last 6 years. I compared it to more the war in Iraq, which is more, I guess, a conventional war. And you'll see there's been 73 reporter deaths. I'm taking that from Article 19, which is the British-based press freedom organization, and I added another person because last week Jaime Gonzalez Dominguez, a reporter in Ojinaga, which is also on the Texas border, was killed, so I added him there, so now we have 73. There's also lots of threats and bombings of newspapers, TV stations, media outlet El Siglo de Torreon, and another Mexican border state in Texas has been hit a lot recently with grenades, and 5 of its employees were recently kidnapped. Here's a picture of a car bombing in front of a TV station in Ciudad Victoria in Tamaulipas. That's in 2010. The day before that, another TV station was bombed in Matamoros. And next, I want to show you a video. I'm going to set it up before I play it, just to explain to you what's going on. But it's one of the last times that mainstream media in Reynosa actually televised what was happening in their city with the gun battles. And this happened in 2009. And Reynosa is a city of about 600,000 people. It's right across the river from Texas, from the city of McAllen. And this guy is just a daily reporter. Was covering a gun battle between federal forces and armed civilians in a shopping mall in the middle of the day in Reynosa. So you can see, like, no reporters were really prepared for this situation. So you'll see, we play it now.
Civiles armados y fuerzas federales, la mañana de este martes, al menos 8 personas, cifras extraoficiales, perdieron la vida en un incidente lleno de confusión y miedo, dado que los hechos se suscitaron en diversos puntos del poniente de la ciudad. La balacera se recrudeció en los centros comerciales de la colonia Las Fuentes, Plaza Real, donde un contingente de policías federales chocó con un grupo de civiles fuertemente armados. El armamento de alto poder y las ráfagas de fusil nos hicieron esperar.
Hace un momento la balacera se generó en este lugar, en este sector de Reynosa, donde se dieron armamento de alto calibre y también donde estaba detenida la circulación. Antes del mediodía ocurrió, hay bloqueos en el puente internacional y también hay otras situaciones que se están dando en nuestra ciudad. Está grabando. Continúa, lo que usted escucha son disparos de arma de fuego calibre de fusil y también hay el sonido más fuerte aún de lo que está ocurriendo en esta frontera de Reynosa, el enfrentamiento entre fuerzas federales y lo que viene siendo prácticamente alguna célula de delincuencia organizada. El armamento que usted escucha en este momento es un enfrentamiento de fuerzas federales y delincuencia organizada.
Por espacio.
So, anyway, yeah, we weren't quite prepared for that. You know, you go from covering press conferences to something like that, you know. So everybody was pretty much taken by surprise. By 2010, a year after this video was, or just a few months after this video was shot, there was virtually no coverage in the media in Reynosa anymore about gun battles or other organized crime movements, even though those types of gun battles go on frequently. I was there during that time, and I met with a journalist who I had worked with previously, because I was a daily reporter and I used to cover politics in Reynosa. And I was really shocked by how much things had changed in 10 years. He said that they had to run all their stories through the cartel first. And he also told me that several reporters had been killed for not following the cartel's directions, and that one of the reporters had had his hands cut off. So because of this intense censorship, Reynosa residents started migrating to social media in much higher numbers in order to find out what was happening. And at first they used it to share information about gun battles. They call them situations of risk, to avoid, you know, blockades and gun battles in the city when they're driving. And then they became more bold. They started mapping locations where drugs were being sold, or where stolen oil from Pemex was being sold on the street. And then they also started tweeting information about disappeared people, so that you know, family members could find information about people who've been kidnapped. And this is a quote from one of a well-known, a very reliable curator or a user of Reynosa Follow, basically saying this is the only way we have left to communicate. And it's interesting because Microsoft actually just funded a report, a study called The New War Correspondence, The Rise of Civic Media Curation in Urban Warfare. And they analyzed tweets from Reynosa Follow and from some other cities in northern Mexico since 2011, and they found that that the unique thing about Reynosa Follow is that they had the highest number of what they call curators, and those are people who receive information from other people and disseminate the information, and they also disseminate their own information. I call them citizen reporters, they call them curators. That they had the most curators, the most people. In a lot of the other cities, they're retweeting a lot of information. There's not as much original information generated as there is in Reynosa. And it could be because Reynosa probably experienced the most intense censorship early on in the process, and it's still evolving in Mexico. So let's see here. So this was a map that I pulled off the Reynosa Follow Twitter site stream back in 2010. And I thought it was really cool that this guy had mapped out all the gun battles during that specific moment in Reynosa, so that people could avoid different parts of town if they were driving home from work or whatever. So let's see here. And the next slide. Well, so when everybody migrated to social media, then they started targeting social media users for death threats and murders like they have done with the reporters. So in September 2011, we saw the first murder of a freelance journalist in Nuevo Laredo, which is also in Tamaulipas, for using social media. And it was the first documented case by the Committee to Protect Journalists of a journalist killed in direct relation to reporting reports on social media. It's also important to point out that none of these deaths are investigated. Mexico's Human Rights Commission reports that only 1% of crimes are investigated by prosecutors and 99% of crimes go unpunished. So after the death of Maria, and there was also 2 men that were hung with a sign threatening social media users, I started seeing threats on Reynosa Follow to well-known users or curators, citizen reporters. And this is one message that one death threat that I took off the Twitter stream. It's our friend, Leo Teto, which is a funny name, but died today, and we lament his parting. He was one of the best Twitter users of Reynosa Follow. So after Maria was killed, you know, these threats sort of took on a new meaning. I mean, they became serious, and it really scared a lot of people. And they really had to evolve. And Sergio's going to talk about that because I really think it's the most important, or the most interesting part probably of this whole presentation, about how they're protecting their identities and how they're getting information out. So I have one more video to show you. This leads me up to the latest threats that have been made against social media users in Tamaulipas. And this video was made a couple of weeks ago against a Facebook page that was created in January 2012 called Valor por Tamaulipas, or Courage for Tamaulipas. And it reports on organized crime in the state, and it's a very, very popular site. So on February 20th, a video was released on the web depicting the supposed collaborator of Valor por Tamaulipas. And beside him is you're going to see a masked guy. And the collaborator, it's in Spanish, but basically what the collaborator is saying is that, you know, if you publish any information, this is the price you'll pay. And just to tell you, I mean, it's not a nice video, but many people think it's actually a mock execution, so it's probably not real. But we can talk about that in the Q&A section, so just start that here.
Este mensaje va dirigido a toda la comunidad que tiene que publicar información, dando usuarios de Facebook, Twitter, que Valor por Tamaulipas. Estas personas cuentan ahora con los medios y aparatos de organización que con solo dirección de IP rastrean las ubicaciones tanto del usuario. No soy el primero ni el último cero causado. Por su propia seguridad, tengan de publicar cualquier información. De lo contrario, este carácter se separará.
So that's what people are facing in Tamaulipas. So now I'm going to hand it over to Sergio, who's going to talk more about the security, anonymity, and the way that citizen reporters are working these days, and how he works with them as a daily reporter writing stories.